So this next panel will be hosted by Eric Alter, Senior Vice President and Cyber and AI Engagement Leader at Marsh Corporate and Commercial, whose stand is just on the corner. The title of the session is Cyber Risk is Business Risk, Embedding Cyber into Enterprise Risk Management. I'll hand it over to Eric. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good morning, one and all. Thank you very much for joining us today. So, as it says, I am a Martian, have been for 19 years, and I currently lead Cyber and AI Risk Engagement. Before we start, I'm just going to ask the panel to introduce themselves.
So, hello, everyone, and my name is Federico Jaschi. I am Information Security Director at Starling. I've been working in cybersecurity for many years. And so, yes, this topic about cyber risk, business risk, is something that I'm very passionate about. So, yes, today we will discuss that. Over to you.
Thank you. My name is Niall. I'm the Consulting Director at a company called Cydia. We are a consultancy that specializes in cyber risk and quantitative risk, very much trying to fill that gap between IT teams and the rest of the business. So this topic is fairly close to my heart.
Hi everyone, my name is Helen Nuttall. I'm Head of Cyber Incident Management at Marsh in the UK. My role really is focused on looking at how do we support clients to prepare for cyber incidents and then also respond to them and aligning that with cyber insurance wherever possible.
Okay, thank you very much. So we live in a world of rapid change. If you look at the evolution of AI, large language models, etc., as well as other cyber risks, the speed and pace of change is obviously going to have an impact on risk management. So the first question I want to put to the panel is, what are you seeing in this space?
I'm really struggling to hear you, sorry.
Good grief, somebody can't hear me, that's a first.
Headphones.
So what are you seeing insofar as the pace of change within cyber and AI, and what are you seeing as the impact on risk management?
Who wants to start with that? Me?
You can go first.
I mean, I think from an incident response point of view, you can't come to a conference without talking about AI, can you? But from an incident response point of view, we're seeing threat actors are increasingly harnessing AI to power their campaigns. Phishing campaigns, in particular, are AI is being used to make those campaigns particularly effective. And so we're seeing much more in terms of claims activity arising off the back of AI-driven phishing campaigns that are really convincing and sophisticated. I saw a statistic last week that talked about that non-AI-driven phishing campaigns have a success rate of about 13% on average, but an AI-driven phishing campaign actually has a success rate of about 50%. So, 1 in 2 people that receive a phishing email that has been crafted by AI are likely to click on that link, which I think really goes to show how much it sort of is heightening that risk to all organizations, and that sort of human factor of we as employees, we're all at risk and we're all potentially going to fall victim to that sort of heightened activity that AI is fueling.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think you talk about AI as a good example of a technical change in the cyber world. Things do happen very quickly, particularly when you're responding to an incident, and we do quite often find that cyber risk reporting happens on a very fast pace, and it can typically either be a weekly or a monthly reporting cycle. And I think people within the cyber bubble get caught up in this idea that the risk is fast changing, but I think when you start to report into an enterprise risk world, you have to kind of remember that they don't work at the same pace. Businesses, yes, they like to be fast-paced and agile, but actually a lot of your reporting will be taken into an enterprise risk world that is moving at a much slower pace. And there are considerations around what is important, and they don't need to know the patching levels every week because it's not going to be a part of the bigger picture as well in terms of enterprise risk. So I think a lot of cyber people could spend a lot of good time talk to enterprise risk teams about what is the pace of discussion around risk and to slow down a little bit and think about what's really important in that pace of change.
Yeah, no, I would add that coming to a conference like this and seeing any stand has AI in it. So it's not just a matter of cyber criminals and bad actors using AI, is also how we as company, as we are protecting, we can use AI, and there are lots of solutions that offer AI capabilities. And I would see, actually, following you, that the AI now capabilities that all these GRC new tools they have, they are allowing us to make things faster to some extent, to automate those manual activities that until a couple of years ago, they were performed manually by someone in our teams. Now those things are performed by AI. So yes, there is definitely a change in speed, both from an attacker side and as well from an internal company protection side. So I can see that it's very significantly intertwined to what we do.
We're effectively in an arms race with the criminals. So the next point actually ties in quite nicely, because if we look at very recent times, we've seen two very major attacks, JLR and Marks and Spencer's. The impact on Marks and Spencer's profit was apparently 99.1% for the quarter, which I think is fairly significant. Now, bear in mind, Marks and Spencer's are colossus and can take that kind of pain. Smaller companies probably wouldn't be able to. So very often, cyber is seen as a technical risk. It's seen as something that belongs to the CISO. However, I think, as Marks and Spencer has clearly demonstrated, it's a business risk. It's not just the responsibility of the CISO, but the responsibility of the board. So how do you think we can best engage with the board and make sure that the board take their role within the management of cyber responsibility seriously?
So I can start with that. And sadly, Mark and Spencer incident actually helped most of us, because the fact that Mark and Spencer, and as well, they just read news last week. They were saying, the lost revenue for Mark and Spencer was like 152 million, something.
450 million.
450. Okay. So no, okay. Sorry, even more. And so that is definitely helping us in quantifying what bad security postures can mean for a company. And we have been told, and probably if you've been in conferences in the past, you've been told and you've heard that how cybersecurity people need to use a simple language and explain to our board what they do. They need to not use technical language. We need to keep doing that. I can see that as well from a regulatory perspective, things are changing as well. The regulatory bodies are focusing on cyber risk and cyber resilience, and we need to be super good at explaining that and translating what cybersecurity risks are to the board in a language they can understand. We need to keep doing that. We need to be better. If we go to a board and we start talking about CVSS score or something about vulnerabilities, they will just glaze over and they will look at us and will say, oh, okay. If we instead we are talking about lost revenue or loss of customer trust or reputation or brand protection, they will understand those things and they will better back us up.
Yeah, and I think I would say to someone working in cyber risk to very much get out of the bubble of cyber risk and actually go and, if you don't already, go and ask what are the big enterprise risks on the overall business risk register, and what is the business trying to achieve over the next few years, because a good risk register will show you what they're balancing in terms of the opportunities and also the risks as well. If the business is looking to do some acquisitions, then there'll probably be some risks around that, but also be part of the business strategy. And the way and what you report in terms of cyber risk should be tailored towards that, because you should be showing the business that you understand the overall context of the business. And maybe if they are going on large-scale acquisitions, then the risk is different from a cybersecurity point of view, and you tailor your message and showing that you're aligning and you understand what the business do. Cyber shouldn't be sold as a negative to the business, and something we'll touch on is around the other positive aspect of showing that cyber can actually be a business enabler as well. And by managing those cyber risks, you're contributing to the overall management of enterprise risk.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with everything that's just been said, but I think, again, like sort of looking at it from that response point of view, we do often see, I guess, organizations just look to the CISO to lead an incident response. And actually, when you're dealing with a major incident like a ransomware event, something that it has potentially shut down your operations, is impacting your ability to pay your staff, maybe is impacting your ability to even communicate with your employees, your customers, and everything else. That's where you need that organizational response, and everybody needs to know their roles and responsibilities and be able to feed into that incident response team really effectively. And that's not just a technical problem. Your CISO will have the technical incident response piece covered, and they will be working flat out round the clock to recover systems and get back online. But the rest of the business also need to be looped in really quickly and effectively to make those critical decisions in a crisis, like, do we unplug systems? Do we turn things off? Do we pay a ransom or not? Do we bring in law enforcement? Do we notify our customers? There are loads and loads of decisions that need to be made that are completely outside of that sort of technical CISO domain. And for that, you need the organization to be on top of those decisions and engaged and well-versed and well-practiced in how to do it. And the best way to get that muscle memory and to build that sort of comfort with making those decisions is to do tabletop exercising, crisis simulations, and to run them at various levels within the organization on a regular basis. So, not just a sort of technical crisis response simulation, but actually, at your gold team, at your board, how are they going to be engaged? How are they going to make those decisions? Do it in peacetime before the crisis hits, so that when it actually happens, you're in a much better place to make those calls.
Yeah, I think it's a very valid point, Helen. So the next point is, how should risk be viewed, cost or investment? I'm going to give you an example. We did an industry review for a logistics business, 440 million turnover, 365, 24/7 straight line revenue pretty well. And they managed to score a half out of 4, which is basically a charity half because they spelled the name of the company correctly. You cannot get lower than a half. So we then said to them, they said to me, what is it going to cost us to become insurable? And this was at the time the market was very hard. And I said, you're going to be looking at least $250,000. And their response was, we can't afford that. I said, just one second. Take your annual turnover, divided by 365, which is roughly your daily turnover, and multiplied by 19, because that's the average downtime of a ransomware attack. And it came to about 24 million. They recognized the total cost and they invested, and they're now insured. They became insurable, they're insured. So it's very important how the risk should be viewed. And I'd really like the view of the panel on that as well.
I can't hear you, Eric, sorry.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, how should risk be viewed? Should it be viewed cost or investment?
I'll start on this one. I think I work for a company with this idea that the tagline is positive security. We're trying to move the industry away from the concept of selling on fear, uncertainty, and doubt, whether it's at a conference or within your business. And actually, we do a lot of work with private equity firms and cyber. As much as we can, we push into the value creation teams because we're trying to sell the idea that cyber risk is a business enabler. And if you do it well, both pre-acquisition and whilst you're running a business, actually managing cyber risk builds value in a company. And when you go to sell on your value, And the PE firms get that, and obviously they want to because it's about making an investment and making money. But actually, that's the same for all businesses. There's far too much FUD, as we call it, fear, uncertainty, and doubt. So again, it's about looking at cybersecurity risk not as just a cost to the business, but actually, yes, you're asking to make an investment, but done well, you can actually show a business case for if you invest this much, you actually save this much. And actually, you can actually have a business that's just more valuable at the end of the day because it's managing its risk. So it's going back to what I talked before about understanding what the business is trying to do and aligning your cyber risk with the enterprise risk.
We put out a report a few weeks ago that looked into the different controls that cybersecurity controls that might be being used, things like MFA, EDR, privileged access management, those sorts of things. And one of those controls is incident response planning. And we were really surprised when we dug into the data that we have at Marsh that incident response planning came out as one of the biggest cybersecurity controls that actually resulted in fewer claims and incidents happening. So the organizations that have a well-tested incident response plan and do the tabletop exercising that I was just talking about on a regular basis actually suffer incidents about 13% less than those that don't. And this was not a finding that we actually expected to see in the data. We were sort of thinking it would be MFA or EDR or one of the other controls that would sort of have a bigger impact. But I thought that was a really interesting finding because I think it just goes to show that like investing in cybersecurity hygiene as a whole and having a good cybersecurity culture and spending that money, on things like, tabletop exercising and doing that sort of that cultural investment can pay off in the long run because actually you're going to have fewer incidents. Those incidents are going to be less severe. You're going to manage them more effectively, and overall your losses are going to be less. So I thought that was an interesting point, and yeah, like I say, not one that we were necessarily expecting to see from the research that we did.
Yeah, I would say that, definitely an investment. That we are all agree on that, and how we can present that to the board it obviously it depends, and. As he was saying, we need to understand what our company is trying to achieve, what are the objectives that we need to support. And at the same time, what I experience is that we need to be, we need to have a right balance. You can use security as a added value for products we sell to our customers, saying, okay, if you come buy things from us, your data is going to be very secure. And that obviously is a value that we can sell. At the same time, we need to protect, because if then we have an incident and we sold products saying they are the most secure products, and then our systems are broken, our customers probably will not be happy. But at the same time, so you can spend in cybersecurity as much as you want. If you had billions of pounds, you can spend that potentially. So this is why I'm saying you need to find a balance, saying that the budget for cybersecurity needs to be consistent. You need to invest in security culture, in security posture. But at the same time, it needs to be aligned to the rest of the business. You don't need to.
I think proportionality is absolutely key in this thing. And that does lead into the ability to quantify your cyber risk and your tolerance to cyber risk. And I think this is where a lot of companies fail. They buy a cyber policy because they think buying a limit of 5 million is the right thing to do. As an example, I had a pharma business, £5 billion turnover, who wants to buy £5 million worth of cover. And you sort of wonder, why? I also had another organisation with 20 million turnover who were buying £70 million worth of cover. There is a reason, but it was bizarre and we changed it. So how important do you see that quantification of cyber risk and calculating the tolerance that an organisation has to risk?
I mean, again, that's the idea. We specialize in cyber risk quantification. I've spent 20 years trying to use 5x5 risk matrices to analyze and report risk, and normally hit a bit of a wall at some stage. I think risk quantification works mainly because we're putting things in pounds and pence in a language the business understands. So we're huge fans of that. And again, it's breaking out the bubble of the cyber world. For far too long, relied on these sort of 5x5 risk matrix where everything magically is always in the top right-hand corner. It breaks down very quickly. So again, trying to break into the enterprise risk world, doing quantitative risk is about using real data. And that immediately gives people confidence that you've actually based it on something rather than waving a wet finger in the air and see which way the wind is blowing. But also you can show the model, you can show them graphs of loss exceedance curves, and you can actually talk in the language. And so many times I've seen the CFO light up and suddenly realize you're talking in their language when you talk about risk scenarios that are focused on the impact. And that impact is in pounds and pence, and it's justifiable with a model that is not perfect, but it is useful.
Yeah, and I think we've certainly seen a lot more clients come back this year in light of the major UK cyber attacks to revisit that quantification exercise. They recognise that potentially they have been underinsured in the past. Maybe they've just wanted to dip their toe into cyber insurance and think, we'll buy that 5 million limit just to give us a way in, almost a way to tick a box on, for contractual requirements, we need to have cyber insurance, or buy that sort of minimal limit. But a lot of clients have come back to us this year in light of the major incidents in the news and said, actually, we now want to do a serious quantification exercise. We want to understand what is our 1 in 20 year, 1 in 50 year, 1 in 100 year likelihood of these events happening, and work out where is the appropriate level of risk and what sort of limits should we be buying. And I think that's a really positive step, because I think it means that boards are really engaging now with what is the realistic loss scenario for us, and how much insurance should we be buying to try, to share some of that risk with the insurance market, rather than taking it all onto the company itself.
I think I would say, how can you buy cyber risk insurance if you don't know how much risk your business can tolerate, but also how much the potential impact is? Otherwise you're just relying on underwriters to tell you what your cyber insurance numbers should be. And if you're quantifying your risk and tying it to the enterprise risk framework, then you've got a better base to choose that cyber insurance, rather than just go with what the underwriter or your broker is telling you.
A couple of points from me. And so one thing is that in the financial industry, these risk quantification exercises are to some extent, a regulatory requirement. So I'm very happy that we are actually doing that, and we are doing that quite precisely. But one thing, and this is the second point, that is linked to that. When you do those risk quantification exercises, you need to be able to include all different risks, all different impacts. For example, if you have a ransomware attack, then you need to consider that obviously your company will stop working, but as well, what is the customer churn rather than the brand reputation impact. And you need to include, and we needed to, in this very complex exercise we needed to include all these things. And then you start realizing that the cost of an incident just increases and goes up and goes up. But that is very important. And I think that, if you go to a board member and you just show this is a critical risk or a high risk, is one thing. If you go there and you say this is a 150 million risk, they will just listen more.
And I think something that is often overlooked in the risk quantification piece is that business interruption element that is, that can be picked up by cyber insurance. And I think people can think about the cost of dealing with a cyber incident, the actual first-party costs of engaging your experts and bringing in your lawyers and your forensic IT experts and stuff. And they can think about the liability element of being sued afterwards, but often forget that business interruption can be the biggest portion of any cyber loss. And so, really, where is that risk lying? Do you want to keep that on your balance sheet, or do you want to get that off and insure it?
Yeah.
Thank you. Right, we've got 4 minutes left, so just a very quick one. The big thing that is hitting home at the moment are third-party risk exposures. So effectively, DNS tunneling, being connected to a third party who managed to get compromised to get into your network, or better the other way around, your network's been compromised and it's tunneled into a third party. So very quickly, bearing in mind the time, what are your thoughts around that, please?
I mean, yeah, supply chain risk is huge. Many of the cyber events that we deal with every year are related to supplier incidents that cause business downtime for our clients. It's a real challenge, and I think we've not got time to go into it right now, but really I think the key thing is about understanding your suppliers, understanding what data they're holding for you, what their role is in terms of your ability to trade. If they go down, what is the impact on you? So I think there's a lot of work there to be done to map out that supply chain risk and really just get a handle on it. And that's the first stage in the process.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of complexity in third-party risk management, but it can be boiled down to three risks at a very high level. One is someone holds our data, so we need to make sure that the risk is managed there, or they have access to our systems. That's a very different risk that needs managing. And then third big grouping is we rely on them for availability of services, which is probably the most prevalent for most businesses. And actually making sure that the business understands those three risks and how they're being managed. And actually it's the systemic risks, it's the AWSs, it's all the eggs in one basket risks that the board and the business are going to really want to understand. Where have we got a big systemic risk, because we've got everything hosted in one environment, and that's a sort of enterprise risk which is going to get noticed.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and with regards to third-party risks I often make the analogy that you can build the strongest and highest wall to protect your company, but then if the cyber attackers, they just breach your third party, they can just get through the door to your systems, and the attackers come through that. So it's very, very significantly important to consider that. And one thing that I believe that is important, until a few years ago, we just onboarded a third party, checked that that third party was fine, just performed our due diligence, and then most of the time just waited 12 months to perform a review of the due diligence. And just you could perform your due diligence and just hope for the best for the next 12 months, it's fine. If you are able to implement some kind of continuous monitoring of your third parties, any kind of solution, maybe for your most important third parties, you don't need to do it for all 300 of them. Maybe you just do it for the most important 10 or 12, 15. So having some kind of regular, continuous monitoring, that is very, very important.
Look, my closing comment is it's about security and governance by design. It's about understanding what your exposures are, where they're coming from, and building them into your governance structure, making sure the board is engaged, and making sure you have adequate security. Right, we've got 1 minute and 50 seconds left. Are there any questions? Hi, do you want to come up, just use the microphone there, please? Thank you.
Hopefully you'll hear this.
Is that working?
Yep.
General question. When you're talking with customers, etc., what do you usually run the probability of the attack happening in order for them to properly evaluate?
Sorry, can you say it again?
That's good.
So obviously you have customers, businesses, etc. In order for them to properly assess what the impact will be, there'll be two elements. It'll be the cost if it materializes. But as part of that conversation, what's the actually likelihood of that attack happening so that they can evaluate that?
So you're talking about the estimation of the probability of an attack. It's one of those areas where people say they haven't got any data, and quite often I would say either within your organization, the first thing is look at your own data, and actually near misses as much as actual incidents, but also just in terms of there is industry data out there. Most scenarios you're looking at are not just your risk scenario, they're shared in wider industry, and there are various reports out there which have that data in them, and you can look at them and just decide on the probability and how likely they are based on the broader industry averages. And if you're lucky, they're tied to your industry as well.
At Marsh, we do that, but we handle about 2,500 of these cyber events every year. So that data, we pull that data into those calculations and those probabilities as well. So it's about using sort of the data that's out there and the data that we know our clients.
Okay,
the events that we know our clients are having. Oh, it's
sorry,
time.
I've got to wrap it up. All I would say to you is cyber is a risk you anticipate. It will happen at some stage. And the problem is it may be happening at the moment, but you're just not aware of it yet. So thank you very much to some wonderful panelists. Thank you very much for your attention this morning. And I will now hand back to the next speaker.